and welcome to the Live Wire. My name is Kirsten Kure, and I'm the Executive Director of External Relations for the Belk College of Business. And today we have several guests here that are going to talk about the Center for Real Estate at UNC Charlotte. First, I have Dr. Steve Billings, who is the co-director of the Center for Real Estate, and we're going to be chatting today about that center. Right. So welcome here.
Thanks for having me.
And as the co-director, can you tell us a little bit about what the center is and some of its goals?
Right. So first off, the center was established in 2005. And so as kind of is typical for these types of centers for real estate, it is in essence a university entity that tries to link up the real estate community with more of the kind of academic community. And the kind of the bigger goal was to say, hey, it's like we have this great source of expertise and research in real estate, and we're trying to say, what's a way we can make this information applied and useful to people in industry? Also with local government. I mean, there's definitely an important connection between the private sector, the public sector, and the university, which can kind of do a little bit of both. I think those are all kind of really important things. It was originally started, about a little less than 10 years ago because we had a real strong research presence in real estate. So Steve Ott and Richard Buttermer, which are two of the kind of senior leadership at UNC Charlotte's Belk College for Business, and they were both very involved in real estate research throughout their careers. And they really had a strong passion for getting a real strong real estate center. And, they did a great fundraising campaign to get it going and really kind of leveraging the resources around to make it happen. So I'm pretty new to this position. So a lot of my expertise is more just on the research side and also just kind of, kind of trying to expand in new directions for the Center for Real Estate. And one of the couple things I'm trying to do is to really expand some of the research side, get a little bit more of the research that's been going on all the time at the university and really getting out there for people to consume in a very digestible way, which is always a problem. Most of the academic literature seems very abstract to most people. So trying to make it useful and also kind of give us a better web presence and other elements to make it kind of obvious to people that there's a lot of good stuff going on here.
Would you be able to give us an example of some of the research that's going on in the center or with some of the researchers that you'd love to just give us a spotlight or an example?
Right. I mean, so we actually have a variety of people doing kind of a range of research. I mean, there's a lot of stuff. I personally do a lot of research on land markets in Charlotte. I've done some research on the impacts of light rail. So we have one alignment of light rail already in existence in the South Line. It's now being extended up to the university. So now looking at how neighborhoods and property values are impacted by this type of development, this public investment. There's also a lot of other researchers. We have a number of researchers in geography, like Jean-Claude Thiel, who looks at development patterns throughout Charlotte and kind of the spatial, how this spatially is developed over time. We have people like Craig Demkin in economics who do a lot of stuff with public investment in sporting venues. We have someone like Suzanne Leland in political science who does a lot of stuff with the public-private partnerships and planners' perceptions of private development. And so the idea is to really get a little bit of everyone who's doing these kind of variety of things. And one of the things we've already just started is that Craig Demkin and Suzanne Leland will be faculty fellows for the upcoming year. And so they'll be involved in taking some of the research and really making it very kind of applied and a very nice research summary that people can look at and say, hey, this is something that's relevant to Charlotte or their own circumstances.
Well, and that is a great point too, is that it is very, very vital to the region to have this kind of research going on. Well, how would you describe the partnerships that the center has with the Charlotte region in general and broader?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at our advisory board, which is really filled with a number of them, really all the major developers in the area. We have people from Richard Ellis, Grubb Property, Childress Klein, Kimberly Horn, Crescent. I mean, and also we have people from the city and county, mostly from the planning department, but also other avenues, Wells Fargo. I mean, most of the major employers have someone on our board. And so we're really have this great mass of kind of knowledge and expertise that we can use to really kind of focus any of our efforts to help kind of provide stuff. I think first off, we'll do stuff that's taking stuff that we're already kind of working on and just translating it into a useful format. But as we go forward, to really kind of target some of the research in a way that will be most beneficial for the community.
And the center as a model, obviously it's looking at Charlotte issues, but could it be used, the research that's being used for other urban markets, and is it applicable, the research that's going on in the center for other markets as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the goal is, as a researcher, I can speak this. You always want to first ask, an important question and try to answer it well. But the key is it's an important question, right? You want a question that matters for everyone. And so, in general, most of the lessons we're learning are going to apply beyond Charlotte. Things like light rail are in a lot of major cities now. We talk about schools and how those impact neighborhoods. That matters for almost any urban area we can think of. So almost all the issues that we kind of are on the research side of it will definitely matter beyond Charlotte. A lot of it have this Charlotte context just because people, the expertise is what you see and what you know, and so a lot of it's going to be based on Charlotte. But Charlotte actually is a great example of a kind of city that has a little bit of everything in that way. Diversity, good size, transit, issues that are all going to be relevant to a lot of cities.
And what would you say in the years that the center has been forming, what are some of the biggest accomplishments or the things that make it really special?
Well, I think considering it's less than 10 years old, I think it's done tremendously well. You can compare, most real estate centers have been around a lot longer. They have a dedicated stream of funding, usually from real estate licensing fees. But Steve Ott and Richard Butterman have done a great job of fundraising initially to endow the budget for the real estate center. Also, to have the connection with private industry has been great. Part of the story is we're really the only game in town, and that's I think a big advantage for a city like Charlotte, which is the largest city in North Carolina, and also one of the fastest growing in the country.
And I guess we should mention too that the dean is the Crosland. There's a distinguished professorship.
Right.
There's probably several professors that are specific to real estate in terms of the Belt College and providing even more expertise. So that's
right.
helpful
That's
as well.
correct. Yep.
So, and tell us a little bit about the importance of real estate in general as a subject matter. How does it connect to other issues in our community, and why is it important?
Okay. So, I mean, it has a broad range of impacts. I think one of the most salient is the fact that if we think about the financial crisis of 2008, one of the biggest kind of factors that really exacerbated that whole situation was the fail of the kind of construction industry. All of a sudden, we have a major industry sector just completely stopping. That led to just huge impacts overall on GDP and kind of overall unemployment. And so one of the things we see is that real estate's a big part of the overall economy. If we think about it, and you can think about it in consumers spend a pretty sizable chunk of their income on housing. So if we translate that at what's going on economically, we can think about almost like 25% would be a reasonable estimate of overall what kind of element the housing industry and construction has to do with our economy. And so I think there's a lot of important elements of that it's a big part of our economy. And so if we start thinking about housing and commercial development and all these things that are very kind of big industries, they all involve land and real estate. And so these all becomes a big integral part of that. There's also issues of sustainability, and so if we think about real estate, it really is going to have it has a big impact on these bigger pictures of things like climate change and carbon footprints and all these things we're always kind of hearing and talking about, because the reality is that where we build, how efficiently we make our buildings, has huge impacts on that kind of green bottom line. And so if we have a development patterns that are minimizing commuting, that are maximizing energy efficiency, we'll have a lot smaller kind of impact in terms of the environment.
Absolutely. And what kind of research, maybe if you can tell us a little bit more about your own research and the activities that are happening with you and maybe others. I know you mentioned them in some detail, but it would be great to have a great example that we can share with the audience.
So another area of research I've done probably the most on is something what's called in economics called agglomeration economies. And so that's the idea that businesses will like to locate near each other, that there's a real kind of benefit on each other. So a good example would be, why do we see so many of the same types of stores all clustered together? So you can think of almost every city has like a bunch of antique stores together, or a bunch of car dealerships. They're all right next to each other. And it seems strange if we think about competition and basic kind of economic forces, why are these all together? Well, there's what we call an externality, or there's the fact that one store has an impact on its neighbor. And the impact is that people like to shop and have to comparison shop and go to different stores and really try to figure out what they want to buy and do it all in one trip, in essence. And so we see a lot, and you see these across. You see this always happening across industries too. You see we'll see certain personal services next to different other types of services. We'll see things like a grocery store anchoring always these strip malls, and we see related maybe a personal service like a barber shop or some other type of small retail all kind of near each other. And these are all kind of delving in the story of that there's a real benefit to this kind of spatial configuration. So I have a number of research papers that actually try to measure what's kind of driving those types of patterns, and looking at a variety of things of how people like to shop, and how that impacts where things spatially locate. And so I've done a number of papers that have the story on what I call agglomeration economies, mostly of service industries and mostly kind of the small scale in neighborhoods and within urban areas.
And that's probably critical if you're a developer considering all of these issues. And
right.
So if you can get access to this information, it's going to help you at least try to make better decisions.
Right. The idea is that if everyone's kind of taking into account the effects of neighbors and everyone else is kind of coordinated in this type of development, and that's what kind of strip malls do in essence, or shopping malls, you'll maximize property values, right? Interesting.
So how can people actually get in touch with the Center for Real Estate? What would you advise us about that?
So one of the things, we have a nice website, which will be actually being updated in the next couple months. And so it's a great resource.
Maybe we
have on the screen here, I believe. And then also, if you do UNCC Real Estate, the first thing that pops up is our website. And you can always email myself.
So the URL is realestate.uncc.edu.
That's correct.
Great. Okay. And obviously your emails people can contact you and find out more information about what the center's activities are, the research, all of that.
That's correct.
Great.
That's correct.
Is there anything else you'd like to tell us about the Center for Real Estate that people should know who are maybe alumni or interested in UNC Charlotte?
No, I think we covered a lot of the kind of questions people have, and the website's a great resource. But thanks.
Fantastic. Well, thanks for your time today, Dr.
Great
Billings.
chatting with you.
Thanks.
Thank you.